Cool. So I found this interesting project called BrailleRap, and it's super interesting. It appears to use two stepper motors, one to feed the paper, really similar to the way a printer works, paper printer or 2D printer, and another axis that drives two carriages, one on top of the paper and one on the bottom. And this is super cool and appears to do exactly what I need it to do with not too many parts. The first reservation I have with this system is that two carriage design though. It just seems like the top and bottom carriage might come out of alignment only being located by a belt. My next reservation with the BrailleRap is the punching mechanism, which appears to use like the off-the-shelf cheapest solenoid, which I don't think had enough punching power. I have a manual brailing thing here, a slate and stylus, and just from messing around with that, it feels like it takes way more force than that solenoid can offer. The last reservation I had with the BrailleRap is the actual pins that they use for embossing, like the positive and negative features. So they're using M3 set screws. For the positive feature, they have this like flat machined end, and they're rounding it off with a file or a Dremel. And then they're using actually just the hexagonal socket, but which is about 2 millimeters on the other end of the set screw as the receiving. I'm just not sure if that'll create like the sharp enough dome feature. And I would like this to be like as close to a standard Braille dot as possible. So I'm not sure how close those kind of off-the-shelf parts that are filed and such will get me. The results kind of speak for themselves though. They look really good, and if I can get results like that, I'd be pretty happy. The push-button solenoid circuit that I made should make these things pretty easy to test and iron out before I commit to building the whole thing. So in the BrailleRap instructions, they suggest that you pick up some of these M3 set screws that have a large flat tip, and then file it down to a round. So not only do you have to file out the corners to fillet them, but you actually have to bring the ID in quite a bit. And I think that can be pretty hard for some people to do if they don't have the right tools. Here is the tip for reference. So this is about maybe 2 millimeters in diameter, and the tip of this is about 1¼ millimeters in diameter. So you really have to bring this in and round it out, which I think can be pretty tricky. So what I tried is actually using a standard ballpoint pen. This has a metal insert here, and the tip is about the same, around a 1¼ millimeter. And these are everywhere. You can probably have way easier time finding ballpoint pen tips than set screws with long extruded flat tips. So in the vein of open source, you might have more luck if this works out. So this is kind of the test setup that I ended up with. What I have here is basically sandwiched between two heavy objects is the kind of simulation of what the BrailleRap uses. So it has the standard cheap 24-volt solenoid. Threaded onto it is this M3 threaded body, and kind of stuffed in there is the tip of a ballpoint pen that I tried to get as much of the ink out of as possible. And inside this brass insert is the female end of the set screw, or the hex head of the set screw. So what that allows me to do is actually fire the solenoid, and it kind of seats itself right in the hex head. As far as I can tell, this is pretty much how the BrailleRap works. So it should give me a pretty good guess, or a pretty good test setup to see what the BrailleRap would do before I go ahead and build the whole thing. So I got the sample of cardstock here. We can just try it out now. Cool. So I found it's pretty sensitive to the positioning and aim. So as expected, I think having those two carriages line up and not change distance apart or where they are with respect to each other is going to be super, super important. But when everything does line up, you get pretty good results. So I tried to make a little test card here to demonstrate. These Braille dots were made with an actual Perkins Brailler. So, you know, pretty much as good as you can get for like a do-it-yourself paper embossing. And these were made by the little jig here. So they look great. You see I punched through the paper in some places, but you know, that happens on the Perkins Brailler as well. So I think all can be tuned out. Really promising though.